Alright, so this is just a tutorial on how to create the 2D background artwork. This isn't necessarily the best way, it's just the way that I would approach it. So I'm going to be using a Mac this time, although it's all the same, whatever you use. So anyway, here I have my storyboard, and we can see is basically, I did a really crummy job. Do a better job than me. But basically, it's going to be somebody who is playing video games and goes, I realize I want to become an interactive artist, and then goes on the computer to research it, and basically he learns that it's a lot of work, so he goes to bed because it makes him tired. And that's my story. It's really creative. It's not. Alright, so, but that's basically what I need. So I'm just going to work on this first scene so you can kind of get an idea of what it is. So basically I have like a TV and a couch and what have you, right? So I'm just going to go ahead and do this in Photoshop. So open Photoshop up. I know all you guys have access to Photoshop, and it's way over here for some reason. Okay. Yay. All right. So I'm gonna go to Photoshop and do File, and we will do New. And so there are a bunch of different options. So one thing you could do is film in video, and then you could choose the HD 1080p here. And with that, oh, not that one, sorry. Let's see this one. Yeah, 1920 by 1080, which is good because that will give you a pretty large size, and generally that's kind of, if you have a nice monitor or TV screen, that's the resolution you're looking at, right? So that's like the HD. My thought process though with that is actually you want to go higher. The reason being is, for one, if you want to zoom in, also if you want to do a pan or anything like that. So I'm actually going to go a little bit more than what that is. So let's see what the 4K gives us. I'm going to go ahead and do 4K, which is pretty high resolution, but I think it's, it's for the best. Okay. And we'll hit, well, we can call it like background panel 01. Okay, and we'll go ahead and create that. And oh, it's a little bit taller than what I needed, but that's okay. So I have this really high resolution thing. Now, what you don't want to do is get it carried away with details. The best way to actually approach something, and this is something that like animators use all the time, Glenn Keane's really big on this, is going through, and instead of like getting in there and zooming in on what you have here, and start drawing, okay, like so, you're better off actually making it really small, like something like this, okay? And so the idea is that if you work in a really small area, you think about the composition as a whole and not necessarily about the details therein, okay? It forces you to kind of simplify what you're creating and thinking of it from a bigger picture. So a good example of this is that if you see someone drawing with a pencil versus drawing with a paintbrush, you may have noticed that a pencil's kind of small, like somewhere around 6 to 8 inches, okay? Because when you're drawing with a pencil, you're drawing on paper, and usually it's about 8.5 by 11. It's that kind of size. Now you'll notice that paintbrushes are actually quite a bit larger. And the reason being is that they actually hold the paintbrush from the very end, not like you hold a pencil. Because when you work on paintings, generally, they're larger. So this way you can be farther away from the canvas and see the overall canvas better. Because that's necessary because you're working on a larger medium. Okay, it takes more skill and what have you and all that other business. So kind of the same rules are going to apply here as well. So the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open my layers. So you see how it's kind of weird. So I'm just going to go to Window, and I'm going to go to Workspace. I'm going to reset Essentials, so it kind of sets it back up to like the default. Okay, and I'm just going to go ahead and keep this on Essentials. You can go to Switch to Painting Workspace if you want, but I'm not really that worried about that. I'm just going to make a layer above this one, and my first layer is just going to be my like blocking out layer. So we'll just put like blocking. Okay, you can put sketch or whatever. And what I'm going to do is just try to really roughly draw what I think this should look like. Okay, so I'm picturing this TV being kind of in the foreground, like so. Okay, and then I picture there being like a couch, like here. All right, not too different than what I had. Alright, and then maybe we'll just put like a corner wall here.
and maybe some pictures or something to kind of fill in that space. And these could be things where I could put like little funny little humorous things, okay? And then I was picturing there being like a game controller here. So that I roughly get kind of the idea of what I want, okay? So it's real rough, but it makes me think of, like I said, the overall composition. Feels a little empty here, but I'm actually have the character, I might have the character actually run this direction, so that looks fine. All right, so once I get that blocking done, we'll say, I'm gonna go ahead and make another layer. And this time I can move in a little bit, okay? And I'm gonna do a style of painting called basically grisaille. I don't know if you're familiar with that at all, but basically the idea, it's obviously French, is that you paint in a black and white tone, and then you add color on top of it. So in a sense, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make like a black and white painting, and then over top of that, I will add like a color layer, or I'll make the black and white a multiply layer, and we will work like that. Okay. So I got my paintbrush here, and I'm looking at it, and that's like that size. So I'm gonna see if I can find a better brush. I'm using the bracket keys to the right of the P, which seems to do nothing, apparently. There it goes. All right. Okay, so I'm going to take this blocking one. I'm just going to lower the opacity a bit so it's there, I can see it, but it's not like, in the way. Okay, oops, I'm drawing on the blocking. One more. There we go. Okay. And then I'm just going to go ahead and try to paint this as best as I can. This brush is very unresponsive. Not a huge fan of it. Okay. I don't like that at all. Okay. I usually don't like the brush things that they give you. I don't find them being all that particularly useful. I like to do more of a kind of blobby feel. So let's see how this goes. I'm just going to take, make sure I got that and that on. I'm going to take my flow and put that down. Basically what flow will do is that as you draw over the same area, I'm still on blocking. I don't know why that keeps happening. You'll see that I can get darker and darker. If you use opacity as opposed to that, put this up to 100%. Opacity will be like this, and no matter how many times I draw over top of it, it's always going to be at that opacity. It's always going to be at 44. So that's kind of the difference. Flow's a little bit better because it allows you a little more flexibility. You can keep adding more and more and more. So I'll put this up and lower this. Okay. And I'm just going to use my brackets. And we're just going to kind of roughly paint this in. Okay. Wondrous. That looks really adequate. Okay. So obviously a line there. Just going to make this a little bit bigger. Alright. I got to kind of figure out this couch here. So I'm not a fan of that because it's creating a tangent with the with this here, which I don't really want. Okay. Okay. Fantabulous. All right. It's not quite right. Alright, that eraser is junk. Why are you not very big? Let's do it this way then. And then we'll make the eraser much bigger. There. Okay, a little bit smaller. Okay, and back to brush. Alright, so I'm just going to try and, without wasting a bunch of time here, I'm going to try and just basically block this out. Make it a little bit more finished. I'm just trying to sketch out a little more tight what I'm looking for it to be. Okay? A little sloppy is good. And then obviously there's supposed to be a controller here. Okay. And I'll just go ahead and
shade that in a little. Okay, good. Yay. So now I'm looking at this, and I need to break this down basically. What you like to see in a drawing is to have a midground, foreground, and background. Okay, because it allows it to give it like a sort of depth. So obviously our foreground is this TV here, right? It's pretty obvious. Midground would probably be the couch and the this area here, and then background would be the walls. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is actually draw those in separate chunks each. Okay, so I'm just gonna go ahead and we'll just call this one I don't know, broad. Okay, and then we'll go here, take this one, knock that down, take this, and we'll just turn that off. Okay, so depending on the style that you're kind of going for, you're gonna want to draw it that way. So I'm going to make this a little bit, and try and make it somewhat painterly. This isn't really an area of expertise for me, so we'll see. I gotta kind of experiment with the brushes. That one's terrible. And let's see, this one. I like that one, okay? So I'm gonna make this a little bit bigger. Oh, wrong one. And there we go. And make sure my flow is down. Good, okay. So I'm gonna give this kind of a bluish tone. Alright, so it's good to start with your lighter colors first and then work your way to darker, just like you would if you were doing a painting, right? Because it's easy to make something dark, but it's hard to come back out to make it white. So I'm going to go ahead and just try to paint this as best as I can, like so. Okay, good. All right, and then I'm just going to go and let's see. And then kind of go like this, and maybe go a little bit more in this direction. Bring it down just a little bit more. Now, I'm going to show you a neat little trick to get variation within your painting. Okay, so if you go into Window, and then you go to Brush. Okay, so you got Brush Tip, and then there's all these different options, right? So what I need to do is go to, where are you? No, that's not it. Let me see, I gotta find the, oh, there it is, Color Dynamics. So what we can do is that we can have it, don't need a control, but you can see you can have a saturation jitter, brightness jitter, take the purity down, and then what'll happen is that every time you draw a stroke, it'll look slightly different, and it's based off of these numbers. So if the higher the hue jitter, the more it's going to change. Saturation, obviously saturation, brightness, depending on how much you want that to vary, but obviously it's based off of each stroke. So you have to kind of play around with it to figure out what you want. So I'm going to go like that. But I like to play around with that because it gives me a more variation, just like you would want to see in an actual painting. So, oops, not looking for you anymore. Okay. Now, obviously you don't have to paint this way. You probably have your own style. I'm just looking to get a little something in there. Okay, and then I'm just going to go ahead and make this smaller. Like so. And I'm going to go ahead and we'll exit out of you. And I'm just going to make a little bit darker here. Like so. Alright, we'll go up here. I'm going to change it to this way just a touch. Let's go a little more white. Okay, we'll go a little bit darker. Okay, my perspective is like way off. Terrible at drawing. Okay, but you get roughly the idea. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and basically finish up some more of this, and then we'll come back.